this felt a little bit, had a little bit more joy making it, felt a little bit more personal. Idol didn't really feel like mine at the time. This one felt very much personal, and, you know, I'm saying this now, Trey really brought that, and Jenna, of course, brought the joy back in filmmaking. I'm like, hey, I do want to do this. This is great. This is.
We met before.
This morning was amazing. Talk a little bit about kind of for you, Abel, cinema, and like I loved your Mark Hamill kind of shout out.
That threw me off. Like, it was not rehearsed at all. Like, that was pretty special for me.
Yeah. Well, and just like I guess cinema and like long form storytelling through film, like how has that influenced you as an artist?
Well, cinema's always kind of, for me, it's always kind of been my number one passion. And then, you know, I happened to sing and make music, and kind of felt like a little detour that, you know, like a little cheat code to kind of get into this. And I always wanted to make movies, and I always wanted to make music with movies. So it's, during that journey, you always kind of hear and see the DNA of cinema in my albums and my music videos, and my performances and my stage. So it's always just been a part of me.
And Jenna, I guess I'm curious for you, kind of seeing him work like that, and you know, come with this vision and sort of not fit into a box. I wondered for you, what was that like to kind of watch?
It was such an inspiring watch for me as somebody who is just in love with all of the different positions when it comes to making film. I'm also most inspired by, or a lot of my favorite collaborators have been people who are able to kind of bob and weave through these different mediums and different, you know, versions of artistry, and I think Abel does it flawlessly here. And you know, that's a true artist, and that's somebody who I want to learn from and I want to watch, and I was eager to have this experience, and I just had the most incredible time watching him, you know, be so vulnerable in this job, and, you know, to be in those scenes with him and to get to be honest with him was very exciting. I remember at the time of shooting this, it was a very surreal time, very confusing time, and so to make a film that is really about that and that psychological game you play with yourself was actually really meaningful to me.
So, you know, you come in with this very vulnerable personal project, and you kind of enlist Trey, and I'm sure there's a lot of trust that is required to kind of do that.
Well, well, first and foremost, I was a fan of his work, so I knew that he was gonna, whatever I give him, he's gonna make something incredible. But when we met, we're kind of inseparable. We became really, really close friends and family, and the trust just came natural after that. It's like no one else can tell the story but Trey.
For me too, it was like my first movie I made for $30,000 with literal family members acting in it and friends in it. It was this beautiful, magical experience, and like I told myself going forward, doing bigger projects, I only want to work with humans that I truly feel connected to, and you feel that kismet, good energy connection. And when I met Abel, I felt that, and it was just natural and organic, and he was a genuine fan, and I could tell his genuine trust and like wanting to embolden me and try to make this my own film. And I just got crazy inspired. I got more inspired than I'd been since writing Waves, my prior film. And it just kept growing and growing and building from there. And yeah, now it's just like working with family, and I love them, and I love this film. Very, very proud.
And talk a little bit about, I mean, did you guys go over influences for the film? Obviously, you know, this is not the first, you know, Purple Rain, I'm sure I could see.
Oh, naturally,
yeah.
Purple Rain's always.
Yeah, that inspires everything.
Yeah, I feel like.
I think too. I mean, the cool thing was we didn't meet and we were like, we got to make movies like these. It was more like, have an idea. Here's some like demos and music. These could potentially connect to an album. Let's just like try to make a movie together.
Yeah, the album didn't exist.
Exactly.
So we weren't making a film for an album. The album was inspired by the film. That's really important to know, because from the genesis of the idea, from the inception of it, it was always in my head. After the incident happened, I always saw it as a film, you know, for the screen. I wanted, you know, the audience to feel what I was kind of going through in that moment. So yeah, no, I mean, for audio, for sound,
for sure,
a lot of inspiration for me Yeah.
And as we like kept collaborating and getting deeper into it and figuring out
The
exactly
references
what
started coming.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. It felt-
Organically, it was like, oh,
Yeah.
a bit of this, a bit of that.
Yeah, exactly. It
Yeah.
just felt like, oh, this kind of reminds me of, Persona, or this kind of reminds me of Toby Dammit, So it wasn't, yeah, we weren't going into it like, let's make,
Exactly.
a film that feels like this film.
Yeah, we just wanted to make something, like I set out every time, the dream is to try to make something people haven't seen before that feels fresh, different, and exciting. So we just let that flow, and then references naturally came at certain
Naturally.
points. Yeah.
Naturally.
So even at that point, did you kind of see this as the third part in the trilogy, even before, in a trilogy, I should say, or did that come later?
It was always the third part. Yeah. I didn't know what I wanted to say at the time, but I knew I was making some sort of saga. But that was more just for myself. I kind of wanted to establish that I wanted to make something that can end a story. And lo and behold, something actually happened to me that, I felt like whatever I had in store, I had in plans prior, threw it out the window and focused 110% on this story.
What happened, and also just kind of where you're at right now. Like, how did it change kind of your understanding of you as an artist? I mean, I know you said cinema has always been kind of the goal.
Yeah.
Do you feel like maybe it kind of helped you see your priorities in some ways?
Absolutely. I mean, I was juggling a million things at the time, and I was on tour, dealing with personal stuff as well too. But that's happened before. I was able to still rely on my superpower. I can go on stage and it's this cathartic experience with the fans. I can shut my world off for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and just lose myself in my performance.
Yeah.
And when it got to a point where it was affecting, the lines were blurring, it was affecting my stage performance, and it was affecting, people spend a lot of money to come to these shows, they spend money, they save up for a year. Yeah. And it got to a point where, oh my God, I can't give them what they want. My voice is failing me. And I knew at that moment I needed to sit down and figure out what was going on up there. Because it wasn't a physical injury.
Yeah. Is that so? So when did the decision to kind of retire the Weeknd? When did that come?
That kind of helped it.
Yeah.
That helped it.
So do you think now, like, are you like, you're bringing yourself, like, Abel is now the person you want people to know you by?
It's not even that. I mean, I've always been able,
Yeah.
The Weeknd's always been a performance, but I think I would be super hyperbolic here a little bit, but it felt like I had nothing else to say. Like it felt like that's what it kind of felt like to me. I was on stage and it's like I've said everything I can say as this person, and now it's time for me to take that next step. And this film was kind of like that guiding light for me.
And just to wrap up, I'm curious if there was any lessons that you learned from The Idol that you took into this project.
Yeah, I mean, naturally you learn. That was the first thing we had ever done, and you always learn. You're working with great artists at the time, and still really close with everyone on set, from the set. But it was a learning experience. This felt had a little bit more joy making it. Felt a little bit more personal. Idol didn't really feel like mine at the time. This one felt very much personal, and I'm saying this now, Trey really brought that, and Jenna, of course, brought the joy back in filmmaking. I'm like, hey, I do want to do this. This is great.